welcome back to the Tea and a Buddy podcast. I'm Dominic.
And I'm Erica.
And today's episode, we're going to be talking about William Shakespeare and in specifically the TV show Will.
Yeah, which is from like 2017.
2017, so a long time ago. Remember those days? Pre-pandemic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does seem like a long time ago. I can't believe we've never done an episode about William Shakespeare.
I thought we... maybe not. We haven't done an episode about any of the great writers of our age, have we?
No, I guess not.
No. Like Charles Dickens, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, we did one about J.K. Rowling.
J.K. Rowling, there you go. She's the greatest writer.
I mean, not so much about her, but about the Harry Potter locations around Britain. Let us know. I guess maybe wait and listen to this episode to see if you find it interesting, and then let us know.
It's William Shakespeare.
If you want us to talk about like people like Charles Dickens and, I don't know, whoever else, Jane Austen or,
Jane Austen, the Bronte sisters.
Yeah, because there's been some interesting writers.
Agatha Christie.
Writers to have come out of Britain and interesting stories attached with them and sights to see and, various other things. So
yeah.
But yeah, we just recently
it's a TNT drama, isn't it?
What did we do? We did we just watched it on demand.
Yeah.
I don't know how we found it either, actually.
I think it just came up Will, and I was just like, oh yeah, Will Shakespeare, because we'd watched like funny stuff
I thought you were going to say everything. We've watched everything.
I mean, we've watched pretty much everything. It feels like it sometimes, but we watched something before that, starring the Horrible Histories cast, Bill.
Oh, yeah.
And it was kind of like a funny take on his life.
Yeah.
And it was a movie. But yeah, like that kind of thing, you don't... And I mean,
we recently watched something that was a bit more serious, too. It was like basically after he got finished with his playwriting career and went and just retired back at home.
Yeah, I can't remember what that was called now.
And his kid died, and
yeah,
it was a bit more serious. I don't remember what that was called.
Yeah, I can't remember who played
or
him
even who was in it. Yeah, let us know if you know which one we're talking about.
Yeah, and it was like old Shakespeare, in his elder years.
Yeah, but this one was a mini-series that came on TNT, apparently. We'd never heard of it.
We'd never heard of it, no. And I mean, people may remember the one with Tim Curry, which was more serious.
Oh, I've never seen that.
And it was a mini-series, I think in the maybe late 80s, maybe something like that. It had a lot of people in it, and he played Shakespeare, and it kind of went through his whole life. It was a mini-series, yeah, and...
Oh, I need to see that, I think.
Might need to see it, but yeah, Tim Curry played Shakespeare in it, so... Yeah, and this one had
Cole Meany
in it. I can't remember the name of the actor playing Laurie something, I think his name was.
There were some people that you recognized from other things, but nobody that was like really, really huge.
It was a fictional telling of his early life, because Shakespeare's, much of his private life, it's not known about. It wasn't like...
Well, it was in the 1400s,
yeah,
wasn't it?
Yeah,
so
but when you consider all his plays and everything are revered now, and his works and stuff, it's like, what happened to him, as a person? Mm-hmm. Because, there's few records. We know he was married to Anne Hathaway.
Yeah.
Not the Anne Hathaway that was in Princess Diaries. But...
Apparently, there's very little known about her as well.
Yeah, it's very little. And I mean, people did like to say, she was a commoner, or she was,
Mm-hmm.
And some scholars say, no, Shakespeare was this larger-than-life figure that, would have required a wife of the same stature. He wouldn't have married just any old woman.
Yeah. Well, he was a bit of a Leonardo da Vinci in a way, wasn't he? Like,
he was yes.
Very famous while he was still alive, because a lot of times what happens is these people get famous not until after they're dead. Their work starts being more and more appreciated throughout time then from
largely yes. Yeah.
But he was just as big when he was alive as he is now.
He wasn't revered. No, he was revered. But he wasn't revered. He received a great load of praise during his lifetime. It was only like a couple of centuries after that Shakespeare mania came up.
He was more like he was too popular for critics, basically, at the time, right?
It
was the common people like him, so
because during because he was born in 1564. Well, he was baptized in
Shakespeare.
1564.
Oh, I thought he was from the 1400s.
No,
1500s. Okay.
Yeah. And he died in 1616, 52, and nobody really knows how he died or what he died of.
That's so weird.
People think, oh yeah, he just died of, drink or whatever,
Yeah.
I mean, and people were saying, oh, well, he'd retired by that time, back to Stratford-upon-Avon.
That's so weird that people don't know how he died.
Where he was born. Yeah, because, I mean, few records of his private life survive, and he's often called like England's national poet or the Bard of Avon. And that was a term which started being applied to him during the 19th century when people were like revering his works and idolizing him, and because from the restoration of the monarchy through to the end of the 17th century, the classics were in vogue, so Shakespeare was like, ooh, that's Shakespeare, It was just like he was rated below other writers and playwrights at the time. And so then he started coming back up, like in the Regency period and stuff like that. The people started going, oh yeah, he's this brilliant writer, and he was amazing, and they were just bigging him up until the 19th century when it became like the Shakespeare mania, where critics were just like, outpouring praise, and George Bernard Shaw mockingly referred to people who were obsessed with him as, it's bardolatry, the bardolatry of this whole thing, it was kind of like, this, because he wasn't revered during his lifetime. It was just a lot. He received a load of praise. He was
just popular.
Yeah, he was just popular.
Yeah.
But he wasn't revered like, say, Paul McCartney is revered now during his lifetime.
Oh, okay. I thought he was. I thought the Queen was into him and everything. I mean, maybe I'm getting my information from Doctor Who. I don't know.
Or Blackadder or something like that. I mean, I think looking back, people decide to go, oh, well, he must have been huge during his day.
Yeah.
But really, he was just a popular figure. He was on the scene. He was doing his plays and everything.
Maybe mostly just in London.
In London, yeah.
Yeah.
And then when his style of writing or his style fell out of favour during the restoration of the monarchy and in 1660 to the end of, and after he was dead, people just kind of derided him and were like, oh, he's okay, but he's all right, it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
And then after, once the Regency period came in, everybody was like, oh, yes, Shakespeare. You must go see the new Shakespeare play.
That's so funny. I think
took about a couple of centuries for him to like reach, like, because, I mean, even today, he's still...
Well, that's what I was going to say, is I don't know anybody that's like, oh, Shakespeare, he was only okay. I mean, I'm sure there probably are people out there like that.
Well, yeah.
I think for the most part, he scares people because the language can be difficult to understand when you're reading it,
Yeah.
And so I think people are afraid to... They don't understand it, and that's it, and so they shy away from it, and it's just like, oh God, no, Shakespeare, that's too, that's too complicated, or
it's too complicated, too stuffy. Oh, I don't understand it.
Yeah. And then there's other people that just absolutely love Shakespeare.
Yes.
And,
I mean, that's
better.
Bardolatry, as George Bernard Shaw called it. And when that started happening and the critics started heaping praise upon his works and stuff, people started coming out and going, well, I have a theory. Maybe he didn't write all these himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's where, historians... It's a fringe theory. It's not, like, widely accepted or anything, but it's a fringe theory by some people who think Francis Bacon might have written them.
Really?
Or Christopher Marlowe,
maybe.
Who was in the Will series, he might have assumed his name. And I think Edward de Vere, who was Earl of Oxford, I think, at the time. They've all kind of like been put forward as candidates for, oh yeah, they wrote these plays.
How
but they
weird.
couldn't take credit for it
Yeah.
because of their status. And they wouldn't be accepted or whatever, so they had to come up with this guy called Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So it was like a Franklin W. Dixon type thing with the Hardy Boys. It was like, he was a pen name, or he existed, but he stole from everyone or whatever. It was like, there's a lot of theories going out there, but that's only because of like everybody started singing his praises, so somebody had to go, he's not that great, because he didn't really write all those plays.
That's so odd. I don't know, the first.
But yeah.
No, go ahead.
But, it's a fringe theory, as I said,
Yeah.
So.
The first entire semester of my freshman year of high school was devoted to learning the works of Shakespeare. So, I can't remember how long a semester is. It's half of the school year anyway. So what, 6 weeks? I think they break them down into 6 weeks terms. And yeah, I can't remember which ones we learned, but we learned several of them. We watched adaptations into film,
Oh, yeah.
And then at the end, we had to perform Romeo and Juliet, like as my grade in school, We all had to have a part in it, and we had to perform that. And I don't know, it's interesting, though, to think about that, because there's a lot of stuff, actually, and we've done a podcast on that before, that, you don't learn in school that they kind of knew was truths at the time, but it was just like, oh, it's not what we teach, and da-da-da-da-da. So, it's kind of weird to think, oh, maybe Shakespeare didn't actually write all these things, and it's entirely possible, isn't it? I mean... We
don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of, claims of plagiarism and stuff over the years when someone gets popular.
Yeah.
And they're like, write all my songs and stuff.
Well,
I'm sure it
happens now, doesn't it?
Happens now, and someone comes out and goes, well, actually, they didn't write that. I did, and here's the proof or whatever,
Yeah.
But I think this is mostly, a lot of, academics go, nah, Shakespeare wrote it, and this is why.
But it seems odd that more isn't known about him if he is the one who wrote all of these. You would think that at the time, that at the time they would go, oh yeah, this was Shakespeare's new The Taming of the Shrew, or Twelfth Night, or Midsummer Night's Dream.
What makes him tick?
Yeah, you would have just thought that.
Yeah.
Everybody would have known.
Their private life.
These came out at the time, and everybody knows who he is, and, But yeah, for there to be a question as to how he died, that kind of tells you that maybe not a lot was known. So it does beg to question, possibly
it was a group because some people think it was a group effort, there were several different writers of all these plays, and they just assumed the name of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And Shakespeare was actually a real person, but he actually was a glove maker or whatever it was, they say, in Stratford-upon-Avon, and he came to London and he was an actor, and they were just like, oh, we'll just say he wrote it because we can't say it, because if we say it, then we'll be discredited and we'll be banished from court or whatever. They had the and or no one would believe me because I'm just a pauper. So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Shakespeare was born in a place called
Stratford-upon-Avon, yeah.
Which is where?
In the West Country.
Which is where in relation to London for American listeners?
It's roughly about 100 or so miles from London.
Okay, yeah.
It's west.
Yeah. And he apparently...
It's in Somerset.
So. He went to London. In this series, which is obviously fictionalized because apparently they don't know a whole lot about Shakespeare,
it was like his time coming to London to make it as a writer, and the big city.
Yeah.
And
and he's he's struggling, just
he meets the Burbages, and he meets Alice and falls in love with her and all this kind of stuff, and it's just. It's largely fictional because a lot of, and that's what kind of probably people. It was kind of a good mini series. They tied it up pretty well.
It was good something to watch, but if you're looking for something that's really historically accurate and teaching you all about Shakespeare, this is probably not the right thing for you.
No, it's not.
Yeah, but it's very fun. They use modern music
and kind of modern verbiage sometimes.
Yeah, it's very like they're sort of relating his time at the Globe Theater to like, I don't know, it made me think of like CBGBs in New York City, like during the punk scene, or like a lot of the patrons, or I don't know if you want to call them patrons because I don't know if they really paid. A lot of the people in the crowd.
I think they did pay to get in.
Did they? Because they looked like they were like a little bit of the lower class.
Yeah. They would have paid a groat or whatever it was in those days. And
they have like dyed hair and like kind of
they look all punkish.
Mohawks and stuff. Like they're wearing the period clothes, but then everything else looks like they're like from the punk era.
From the late 70s.
I don't know. It's making the show seem a lot weirder than it is. It really all works quite well, I thought, considering the fact that I had never heard of the show before.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty good.
And I think it was canceled.
It was cancelled after one season, but they wrapped it up.
They wrapped it up, yeah. So it's not like, if you want to watch it, it's not like there's going to be a cliffhanger at the end and you're like, oh no, they didn't do any more seasons of this. They wrapped up the whole season by the end. So it works as a one-off season, really.
Yeah.
And
it does, yeah.
And it was fine, yeah.
There's also, like his Catholicism and stuff, which was, outlawed in England at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Is like he's keeping that a secret, and they're after him and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of like, well, that kind of bit has been expanded. Well, was he a Catholic? He was baptized, so we don't, there's much is not known, so they're just kind of like making it up, and just making it like, oh, Shakespeare must have been this guy,
he must have been this guy. He must have been
this crazy guy, you know, to write all these plays and all this kind of stuff,
Speaking of Doctor Who, though, there is, if you guys are not really fans, or if you're sort of just barely fans, the Doctor Who episode where he meets Shakespeare is quite a good episode. Yeah. Also, Shakespeare in Love.
Shakespeare in Love, yeah.
I mean, you weren't such a fan. You're not such a huge fan of Ralph Fiennes, are you? Actually, no, it wasn't Ralph Fiennes. It's not Ralph. It's his brother.
It's his brother, Joseph.
Joseph, that's it.
Who has never been seen or heard of since.
And that was quite a popular film.
He's been fully absorbed into Ralph Fiennes now.
That was quite a popular film at the time.
It was. I mean, Gwyneth Paltrow was in it.
Yeah. And then adaptations of Shakespeare plays. My first time ever seeing Hamlet was Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet, which is
Kenneth Branagh was just like 14 hours long.
It's a very long film, but it's really good if you're a fan of Shakespeare. So I definitely recommend that. I can remember watching in school Othello. And it was like adapted to modern times from what I can remember.
Oh, yeah.
It came out in like the late 90s,
kind of like what they did with
2000s.
Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Sort of, but I don't know if they told, I don't know if they were speaking in the language,
Oh, they weren't.
Which is what they did in the Leonardo DiCaprio, no, I think it was just a modern telling of Othello, and everybody was speaking in modern English,
I remember we watched Romeo and that Leonardo DiCaprio.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it in English class.
Oh, yeah?
And it was, she was like, it's okay, it's great, it's got guns, it's got violence, I remember telling her, but they do speak in Shakespeare language, so goodbye, she just kind of went, and then we were just kind of like, this is okay, it's cool visually, but the dialogue is a little bit like
difficult to follow. Yeah, it can be difficult, and like I said, I think that puts a lot of people off, unfortunately, but there are adaptations where it's modern English, like I said, so it's not quite so difficult, and you can still get the gist of it. One of my mom's absolute favorite movies of all time was the original Romeo. I say the original. Was Romeo and Juliet from like the early 70s, I think it was.
Oh yeah.
And with the da 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 da.
The Way We Were.
No, it was a music piece that was specific for that film, I think.
Right,
but I guess it got really popular, and I've seen it, but years ago. But anyway, I'm quite a big Shakespeare fan, so we've never seen the Globe Theatre any of our times to London.
No, well, it's not the original, obviously.
Well, no.
It was something. It was. I think we talked about that in a previous episode, didn't we?
About the Globe?
Yeah, it was like 1997 or something. They put it up.
Oh, yeah, maybe we did.
They rebuilt it, or they opened it again.
Yeah. Because it burned down, didn't it?
It burned down. God, when did it burn down? 60. Just before, I think 1613. Just before Shakespeare died, I think it burned down.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, he wasn't in London. I think he was retired at that time. So.
I mean, I am curious. In this show, Will, that we just recently watched, they sort of. I mentioned Colm Meaney is in that. And his character is the owner of the theater. Yes. Right? Or
it's not the Globe.
The partial owner. It's not?
It's not, no. It's.
I thought it was meant to be.
I mean, it's meant to be, because it's like the Globe, but it's like I don't know if they called it the Globe.
I don't think they did, but I thought that was the theater
maybe
it was meant to be.
Maybe.
I mean, with the shots from the outside and the inside, it looks like what I imagine the Globe to be. But I wonder, did you happen to look that up to see if they were real people?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
The Burbages, they were actors and stuff.
Oh, and did they own the Globe Theatre?
No.
No? Oh.
No, well, I couldn't, no, I don't think so, no. I think that was just total...
Yeah. Just for the show.
Just for the show.
But yeah, so we've never been there. I've never been to Stratford-upon-Avon, which apparently you can go and visit Shakespeare's house. And it looks like a very beautiful little, village anyway. Yes. Even if Shakespeare hadn't been from there.
Yeah, no, they've given us, it's National Trust now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and you can, I think, tour.
You can tour it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go on tours and everything when Stratford is, that's the only reason people really go there.
So they don't know where he's buried or anything then? Because I thought he was buried on the, around
I don't know
there.
if he's buried around there, but I think I'm not really too sure, but I think they don't know. Or maybe I'm thinking of Alfred the Great. They don't actually know where he's lived. He's buried. Yeah, but I know there's I think there's a headstone or something for him in the local church.
Oh, okay.
The Church of the Holy Trinity.
So they know where he's buried, they just don't know how he died.
Yeah, they don't know how he died, yeah.
Okay. Huh.
There's another show with David Mitchell. It's a sitcom, though, written by Ben Elton.
Yeah.
Called Upstart Crow. Which is which is the comment that some guy called Green made about him, this upstart crow, his, it was a criticism of him,
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's following the first series of it, because I think it's been going for 4.
Is it ridiculous though with David Mitchell? I mean,
no, it's a sitcom, but it's kind of so it's supposed to be funny, but the first series follows the writing and preparation to stage Romeo and Juliet after William has gained some early career notoriety for his poetry. Henry VI and Richard III.
Yeah.
And events in each episode allude to one or more Shakespeare plays and usually end with Will discussing the events with Anne and either being inspired to use or dissuaded from using them in a future work, along with many Shakespearean references, including the asides and soliloquies.
Oh, yeah.
There are also several references to the television shows Blackadder and The Office. So it's kind of a modern, British sitcom take on Shakespeare's life.
Yeah.
And they get David Mitchell to play it.
Yeah.
So it's. I mean, I love David Mitchell anyway.
But you haven't seen it, have you?
I haven't seen it. No, I've seen trailer
clips from it,
but I haven't checked it out fully. So
yeah,
maybe we'll
have to look for that.
We'll have to look for that. Yeah,
if it's not too silly. I mean, I like David Mitchell, but yeah, I have a feeling.
I don't think. Ben Elton wrote Blackadder too.
Yeah,
that's just why and it's going to be they've got Kemp and they've got Marlowe in it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think even Kenneth Branagh guested in it.
Oh yeah, so, that's funny
because Kenneth Branagh now thinks of himself as Hamlet. as Shakespeare himself.
Yeah.
I think he even played Shakespeare again in Blackadder Back and Forth.
I mean, there's quite... You know what? One thing... It's kind of embarrassing to even say, actually, because I don't have any explanation as to why I have never gone. But since I've lived here, they have done Shakespeare in the Park for free.
Shakespeare in the Park.
During the summer
Yeah.
here in Austin. And I have never once, shamefully, been to go see it.
Shameful.
Yeah, because I'm
Absolutely shameful.
I am a fan. You know, I'm
a big fan,
I'm clearly not.
Got all his records.
I'm clearly not a big fan because I didn't even know that they didn't really know that much about him. You know, and I have wondered, like, why has there never been, like,
I think the
really
legend
good...
of Shakespeare is more than actually who he was.
Yeah.
And I mean, unfortunately, so little is known, you'd have to time travel to actually figure it out, or, you know, just make it up and make it seem plausible.
Yeah. You know? Yeah, I always wondered why there was never, like, a really good biopic about
because nobody
him,
knows
you know?
anything about him, yeah.
Yeah. Let us know if you have read a really good book about Shakespeare's life, or if you've seen a really good movie that seems to be quite, you know, accurate as to what his life was like. Yeah.
Because he was known in his early days for, like, his poems and his comedies.
Yeah.
He got kind of popular off the
The Twelfth Night is hilarious. The Twelfth Night is hilarious.
Yeah, and then, you know, he had the plays and they were more serious. And then afterwards he kind of got, you know, in the later part of his career, he was known more for, like, tragicomedies, which were like romances. I'm guessing, like, you know, Romeo and Juliet, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like, I remember playing the part of Macbeth. I was Macbeth, and, you know, it was like a little, like, English class production of it, you know, where I just read it.
So you
out.
had to learn about Shakespeare in school.
Yeah. And we only did Macbeth, and I think we were going to do A Midsummer Night's Dream as well, but we never got around to it, maybe. But yeah, I remember it was like, that's all they kind of taught us in English class was Shakespeare. Shakespeare! Wonderful Shakespeare!
It's funny because,
lovely man.
That's all I learned about him in high school, and then never again that I can recall. I mean, in college it was more about William Blake and...
Oh, yeah, Charles Dickens.
You know.
Maybe, you know, later authors and stuff.
I don't know, but... Anyway, I think we've exhausted this topic.
We've Shakespeared out this topic. I mean,
let us know your favorite Shakespeare player. Actually, I was going to mention, too... you were watching for a while, or you follow Patrick Stewart, don't you? Because he does he reads the sonnet. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
and there's Shakespeare's sonnets.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, well, yeah, he's still a member of the RSC. I mean, he was for years.
Yeah.
Royal Shakespeare Company, which does Shakespeare, you know.
I love the fact that so many cities do free Shakespeare, you know, and they're quite good productions from what I hear. I mean, like I said, I've never been to see. Have you ever gone to see Shakespeare in the Park anywhere or anything?
Well, not Shakespeare in the Park, but I mean, I've seen...
It's always... I'm sure they do it in Hyde Park.
I've seen amateur productions of...
I'm sure they do Shakespeare in the Park in Hyde Park in London also.
Oh, probably. Yeah, but no, I haven't.
Yeah.
But I've been to, like, small theatres and stuff and seen it, you know.
Yeah.
English... Usually it'd be English class day outs or whatever, you know.
Yeah. But
yes.
Let us know your favorite Shakespeare production, or you know, sonnet or whatever.
To be or not to be? That is the question.
Thank you so much as always for tuning in. We appreciate your support so much. Be sure to check us out on social media. We are at TButty, TEABUTTY on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we'll talk to you next time.
We will talk to you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.